My name is Joan Bauk. I'm one of the adult programming librarians at the St. Mary's County Library. Tonight we have Barb Whipkey joining us, and she's going to teach us how to create a certified backyard habitat. And I'm just going to put one more ad out there for the St. Mary's County Library. If you notice, I have this summer reading t-shirt on. Our program this summer is called Tales and Tales. And the summer reading program is not only for children, it's for adults. We'd like to encourage you to read and do some of the activities like read a newspaper article, send a note to a friend. So if that's something that you feel like you would be interested in, you can see the directions on how to get into it on the St. Mary's County Library webpage. And we encourage everyone to sign up because at the end, there'll be raffle tickets and all kinds of prizes. So with that, I'd like to welcome Barb and take it away, Barb.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. I know probably a lot of you we have met in the store. If not, please come by and introduce yourself to us. We love when we have people come in that say, just the other weekend I had somebody and they were like, we watch all your shows every month. So it's kind of cool to get to meet you face to face. So if you come in and you see me around here, yell or ask somebody if I'm around. I bounce between the Lexington Park and the La Plata stores. So most days I don't know where I am, but if you see my car in the parking lot, I'm here somewhere. So bird feeding has been a hobby of mine forever. Way back when, I could, as a kid, I was always out in the woods. If I had the opportunity to be inside or outside, I was outside. So, very aware of nature, the birds, the sounds, things around me. So it's been opening the store was just kind of a natural thing for me. It started out, it was going to be our retirement job. So we didn't sit home and get old. And then it's grown into a little more than that, but we love it. There's never a day where I'm like, oh, I got to go to work today. So it's kind of cool to be at a job that you enjoy being in. So anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about creating a wildlife habitat. And this is actually something that through the National Wildlife Federation, you can get your yard certified. Ours, we certified it several years, and then we went a little step further and had it certified as a bird sanctuary and a monarch way station. So we are tucked way back in the woods, and it's like, who's going to notice other than us and the wildlife? But it's been really interesting for us. We paid and got their cool little signs. There's ones that look like this, and then there's little brass ones you can get. And it's actually a great conversation starter to have in your yard. I'm always amazed at the number of repair people, service people that come to do repairs, deliveries, that ask us about those signs, what it means. So by having those signs, you're actually continuing to educate and, be an advocate for the wildlife. So those signs you may think when you're doing it, oh, this is kind of silly other than the natural part, but those signs are actually a good little plus too. So tonight we're going to go through what you have to do to certify. If you only have a balcony area, live in a townhouse, an apartment, small yard area, you can still certify. So as we're going through today, I'm going to try to remember to hit on those things that would be suitable for you if you're in a small area, that you can still meet these. So the things you need to be looking at is food, water, cover, basically places for the wildlife to take shelter, and places to raise the young, and then using sustainable practices. So we're going to dig into all those a little bit deeper. I will mention that Joan put a couple links in the chat for me. So you're going to want to make sure you take note of those because those are a couple really good resources. The first is where you can get your yard certified, and it's all done online now. Back when we did ours, it was like fill out this paper and mail it in and then wait for it to come in the mail. And so it's very easy. You know, by the time the night is over, I think a lot of you can potentially have your yard certified. So we're going to dig into these. First of all, food for wildlife. Obviously, native food is great. There's a lot of native plants that you can plant or you probably already have in your yard. The link that is in the chat for the Audubon Society, very cool link. You log into there, you enter your zip code, you click on what you want to attract, birds, butterflies, squirrels, whatever, and it'll come up with a native plant list for you. You can say, oh, that one's ugly, I don't want that, or that one's too big for my space. You can click on them and create yourself a plant list. You can even shop right from that list. So it's really cool. You just enter your zip code there. So if you're buying gifts for somebody, some point you want to send your mom, dad, somebody plants, you can go in, enter their zip code and send them plants. So It's a very cool resource. So, a lot of you probably will find that you already have some of the plants that are needed, but then you also want to supplement. We hear all the time, oh, I don't feed my birds in the spring and summer. The spring and the summer is the worst time to stop feeding your birds. We tend to think everything's green, there's things growing, there's natural food out there, but that's not the case. A lot of things don't go to seed until the fall, and that's the foods that the birds are relying on. So you want to continue, but also when you stop at those times, you've stopped when they're at their toughest point. They're trying to raise their young. So they looked around and they're like, oh, she always has this feeder full for me, so I'm going to nest right here. Then you pull the feeders. So really pay attention to that. If at any time you want to stop feeding, the best time I would say to do that would be August and September when things go to seed. So you want to have the native foods, but you also want to supplement with bird feeders, with suet. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Suet that you would just put something like this. You can put a hot pepper suet in it and you can hang it from that tree. So you can space your feeders out. If you don't have a pole set up or any place to really put a pole set up, we have hot pepper foods, hot pepper suets. So you can just sprinkle them around in trees. There is a great ground feeder. This one is, I love this one. I fill it with safflower. Most squirrels don't like safflower. Some will. I usually have one or two that will eat from it. I don't mind one or two eating from it. But that is a great one if you have a small yard, can't put up a pole system, or you want to kind of keep it out of sight of the HOA. That's a good one that you can just tuck in somewhere. Use that safflower, use the hot pepper seeds in that. Very good if you're in an apartment complex. That's a good one to put on a balcony or something. You can also, hummingbird feeders are another one. Again, this is another cool one that if you've got a small limited area, you can feed the hummingbirds. You can hang them off your window. You can hang them on a hook on your deck area. As well, butterfly feeders. It's another small one. So they are a part of the wildlife that we're trying to feed. So you put a sugar water nectar in here, pieces of bananas up here. Butterflies love the potassium, so adding that there.
Barb, can you show us the top of the butterfly feeder? I've never seen a butterfly feeder before.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So this one has smaller holes on it so that the butterfly can just drink from it. And then in those little spots is where you would just lay chunks of banana for them.
Oh, wow.
And then, because of course those annoying ants, the middle you're going to put water. So when the ants try to crawl down, they're going to drown in there.
Is the mixture the same 4 parts sugar to 1 part water?
No, it is.
It's not 4 parts sugar.
It's not. It is. Yeah, 4-part water, 1 part sugar for the hummingbirds. It is different for the butterflies, and I don't have it off the top of my head. If any of my team's watching, jump in there in the chat and give us that answer. I want to say it's like 26-1 or something. It's a much different concentrate, but you can use your regular sugar to get
And do
that.
they have a beak, that long beak like a hummingbird?
They've got like little 2 little antenna type things that they're going to put right in there to get there, kind of like a little straw.
Okay, I never knew that.
So,
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure. So shrubs and trees, but definitely those shrubs and trees aren't going to be a food for them all year long. So you definitely want to substitute that or supplement that with bird food and not just seed, because, you know, we've got birds that don't eat seed. They are suet eaters. So making sure if you're supplementing with seed that you're adding some seed, you're adding some suet. Suet can be done different ways. This is bark butter, a product you put right on a tree. You take a fork and spread it on a tree. So you've got that tree out there or an old tree stump. You can just spread some of that in there. Pop that in there. We've got that. That one is hot pepper that I have. So that's going to keep the squirrels out of that. Bark butter bits is another one. It's a suet nugget. So those birds that aren't seed eaters can eat from that. So just offering a variety of food, you know, natural and as well the suets, seed, different products like that. Foods. Being careful, you don't want to get those cheap mixes. Talked to a friend the other day and she's like, yeah, my birds go through so much food. And I said, send me a picture of that food. So when she did, it had all these pretty little orange balls that songbirds don't eat. So what's happening is the songbirds are tossing those out. It's growing you a nice little weed pest under your feeders. So you want to make sure if you're getting that seed, don't pick up what they have at the grocery store. You can get some good stuff at the big box store, but make sure you know what the seeds are you're getting. Milo, grains, things like that. Our songbirds are just going to throw that out and look for that edible seed. So make sure you're getting a quality seed that they are going to eat. Sunflower, Tanager, things like that are good ones. And then along with the different type of foods, different type of feeders. Not all birds can land on a perch and turn sideways. Cardinals are one of those. They have a short, thick neck, so they need to eat forward facing. So offering a tray feeder, like that one I just picked up, is a good one. And then we also have hanging ones. Tray feeders, let those birds eat. Out here at our feeder today, we had a brown thrasher, which isn't typically a common feeder bird. So the fact that we could pull it in the middle of this busy parking lot is pretty amazing. So that just goes to show if we can bring some of these cool birds in this parking lot, I know we can get them at your house. So if you have a certain type bird you're looking for to bring in, let us know and we can help you work on those ones. Specialty feeders, finch feeders for our finch. Goldfinch are very polite little birds. So they tend to sit up here and wait for a perch to come open. If your feeders are really busy, that perch may not open. So give them a finch feeder that only finch can eat from. And that's going to be sure you have something for them. We talked about hummingbird suet feeders. So that's kind of the food. So water. Obviously, a bird bath is one way that you can offer water. You've got a lake or a stream nearby, that's another one. We've got one spot in our yard where the water runs off all the time. So my husband just put a little drain down to it, and then in the ground put an old saucer slab. So the water just trickles and keeps that full. The bees absolutely love it. We'll see birds down there, a little bit of everything. So, you know, offering different sources of water. One of the good ones, this is another great one. And again, if you're on a small balcony or you have a small area to feed, something like this is great. It's just a little dish. Add some marbles or rocks to the bottom so that your butterflies and bees can get in there and drink as well. So you want some deeper water that the birds can bathe in, the squirrels can drink from, raccoons, whatever wildlife you're bringing in. But then you want those shallow little dishes for the bees and the butterflies as well. Water. And then in your waters, if you can add moving water, that will attract even more birds. That will keep mosquitoes from laying in your bird bath. You can do that a couple of different ways. This is just a little water wiggler here. Looks like a little mushroom, and it's got a spinning piece on the bottom, and it just churns the water up. So the birds are attracted to that moving water sound, but it's also going to help to keep it a little fresher for you. We have fountains you can plug in and run in there. A dripper. This one is really cool. I have this in one of my bird baths, and I will tell you, those goldfinch are in that one nonstop. They'll actually get up here on the top and then lean upside down and drink from it like a water fountain. And this one just clamps onto your bird bath, hooks to your hose, no electric required. And you can set it up to either spray a mist, which the hummingbirds love, by the way, or just to drip on that.
How does that one work, Barb? Does that have a battery?
No, that one connects to your garden hose, and then you just leave the garden hose drip.
Okay.
And so you've got the hose attached to that end. So it's just kind of dripping, but it's going straight there into your bird bath.
Okay.
This one is the same concept, but this one you can wrap around the pole. You can wrap it around, a bush or something. Just going to grab this one. Someone asked, what is this one called? This one is called the Dripper Mister. That's the larger one that clamps onto the bird bath. And that's great if you've got a bird bath that you can't keep water in. I've got one that between the squirrel, the deer, it's empty all the time. You know, I'll fill it in the morning, come home, and it's almost dry. So that one's good, keeps it going. This one is just a mini mister. So this one you can twine around a bush, a shrub, a pole, and you just leave it dripping too. So that provides just a mist. And you'll see the hummingbirds and the other birds out there just flying through that mist. If anybody's been out watering your plants and you see the hummingbirds coming in there, they love the misty water like that.
Wow.
The water sources, you know, think outside the box. Don't just think of bird baths. Think of bird baths high, low, little pans of water, something you sit right on your deck rail, adding rocks or stones because you want varying levels there. So that is water. And again, this isn't just for the birds. This is the squirrel, the deer, the frogs, the insects, the bees, reptiles. During that, it's hard to think with as much rain as we've had today, but we have really not had a lot of rain. So the wildlife really need our help with getting enough water out there to them. And then cover and shelter. So cover and shelter can be really easy. It can be, you know, hanging something like this up. I have a wren that sleeps in this every night year round on my porch. When they're not nesting, the Carolina wren pair sleep in it. When they are nesting, she nests in the hanging basket and he sleeps in this at night beside her. It's so cute. The last thing you'll see him do is come over to the side of the pot like he's saying goodnight, and then he pops in there and sleeps. So this is more for shelter. This isn't something they're going to be nesting in because that would get pretty crowded with 5 or 6 little babies in there. But this is just a shelter for them to get in out of the elements. Same concept with this one. It's just a large board that they're going to go in and sleep in this. I have one of these and I have wrens that sleep in it as well. So when we think The cover, we're thinking more for shelter, not where they're going to nest. You can give them shelter by taking a basket, a pan, something, turning it upside down in your yard that's just got a little opening that they can hop under. Twigs, branches, your Christmas tree. Don't haul it off to the recycling plant. Toss it out somewhere. You'll be amazed at the wildlife that will live in there and take shelter in there. So just, if you've got a tree that comes down, and you can leave that snag safely, that you're not going to run the risk of it decaying and falling into the house or something, leave it. You will be amazed at the woodpecker holes that you'll see come into that. So really think through options for giving shelter.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so we live close to Greenwell State Park, and there's several times that we've come home. We have a wreath on our back door and our front door, and there's several times that we'll open our back door and we will have 4 or 5 birds that come in because they were hiding or literally hanging out like in the wreath itself.
Right.
So is that like, so should we get some type of cover or hut for them and take our roots down?
Exactly.
Okay.
That is definitely what I would recommend, which is how this came to me, how it came to be with me having these shelters on my front porch.
Yeah.
Because they will, if you leave a wreath up, they will get on there. And, especially Carolina wrens, house finches love to nest in those wreaths. And then you're kind of stuck, like, do I not use my door? Because now there's a nest in there with eggs. So it really is better if you can leave the wreath, but can you take it off the door and put it somewhere else on that, the wall there, so it moves it away from the door some? And that still will allow them to use that wreath. You still have the decoration, but you're not running the risk of them coming inside with you every time, because those Carolina wrens do not mind coming in the house with you. And then it's fun trying to get them out.
I've had the same thing happen, Janice. And my neighbor had a bird put a nest in her front wreath. Had to stop using the front door until the babies were born. So.
Right. Yeah, it kind of gets awkward. And a lot of people put that pretty wreath up at Christmas, and then if you don't get it down quick enough, it's going to be somebody's home. So yeah, wreaths are still cool, but if you can just move it away from the door some, that will help you. And then offer little things like the gourd, the nesting pockets for them to take shelter in. Particularly those Carolina wrens, they like to sleep next to our houses, on the light switch button next to your door, up in the corners of your porch and that. So they really like hanging out with you. But if you can kind of give them better locations to hang out with you, that will save you some headache. So
Barb,
good question there.
Is it best to keep those baskets, the little basket that looks like a nut, is it best to keep those near your house? Because I got one over the winter and hung it on my front porch, but they never went in there really.
So keep watching, unless that basket is sitting where you're watching it in the evening, you may not even realize they're sleeping in there.
Okay.
In our case, ours is sitting where I tend to sit in the evening, so I can see it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would not. If I didn't see them go in at night, I wouldn't know that they're in there.
Okay.
But we kind of, it's become an evening thing, like, oh, they're going to bed for the night.
Okay.
So yeah, you honestly don't realize that they're using it a lot of times.
Okay.
One way you could check to see if they are is like a little piece of pine straw and just kind of lay it against that hole.
Okay.
And if you notice the pine straw has laid down or moved, that's going to give you a good guess that somebody's going in there.
Okay.
But, they're not going to make a
mess.
mess in there. So you're usually just not even aware they're in there.
Okay. Thank you.
So hollow logs, rock piles, those rock piles give the lizards, the frogs, the insects all a place. A challenge if you have kids or grandkids, to send them outside to make some shelter. you know, in the flower beds or tuck them under bushes and that. So it can be a fun project to get kids outside too, to make these little, you know, stone walls, brush piles, whatever for the little ones. So then along with the cover, we also need to give them places to raise their young. So we talked about that snag. If you can leave that snag up when that tree breaks off, that becomes a wonderful place for a lot of wildlife to use that for young. Obviously, you can do nesting boxes, or you can hang up places. For this particular one would be for a Carolina wren or a Carolina chickadee to nest in. We've got one, this one, for your bluebird, but also your tufted titmouse, Carolina wren, bluebird, and chickadee will all use this one to nest in. As well, you can put up a big owl box. This one would be for a screech owl. I have had this one for several years. I've never had a screech owl. In the winter time, my bluebirds use this for shelter. A whole bunch of them will pile up in there for shelter. And then this time of year right now, we have a great crested flycatcher nesting in it. She has 6 eggs in there right now. So just because it says screech owl, it does not mean that that's the only thing that's going to nest in there. There's been squirrels in that, a little bit of everything in there. So a variety of houses is good to bring in a lot of different species. As well, this would be for bees to nest. So our mason bees, this would give them a place to raise their young. This you can just put onto a tree, onto a fence, something like that. Pretty low maintenance on that. Another one that people either love or hate, this one is a bat house. I will tell you, with the bats, it is amazing the few mosquitoes that we see at our house compared to when we go to other people's houses, camping, things like that, because we do have a lot of bats living in our bat house. In the evening, just at sunset, you look out and you see bats all over the backyard. You know, I know we've been told to, yeah, bats are horrible, but they do a great job with the insect population and helping with the mosquitoes.
Do you
so think about a bat house.
Barb, do you put the bat house right on a tree? Attach that to a tree?
If you put it on a tree, you would want like a pine tree or something that doesn't have a lot of heavy foliage, because they use this to raise their young. It's kind of like a bat nursery.
Okay.
So you want 6 to 8 hours of sunshine on that. You can put it at the peak of a roof, peak of a shed, on a pole straight up, but you do want to make sure it's getting a good amount of sun on that.
Okay.
A lot of bats will, here in Southern Maryland, we see them a lot under the shutters of your house. You may have bats and may not even be aware they're there. A lot of times the guys that do the power washing and that all of a sudden startle them out. But bats are actually a good positive. We do need those. So what else? Nesting. We've got wood deck houses, purple martin houses, lots of different nesting boxes and that. Stop in and see us and we can go over those with you. So we've got the places to raise their young. Then the last one is going to be sustainable practices. Try to avoid pesticides, all that stuff that it's not good for the ground, that's not good for the insects and that. We've got the musical clock going over here again tonight. We've got a clock in the store that every hour on the hour the birds chime. So using mulch, creating a rain garden, using a drip or soaker hose out there. Try to reduce your lawn area. So maybe dig up a little bit of your lawn and just fill it full of plants. We've got some really cool flower seeds here in the store. And I will tell you, last year we took a big patch and tilled that up, planted those, and it was amazing the butterflies and the birds that we would see in that area. It was really cool because it's a lot of the birds that aren't going to come to our feeders, but they were all over in that area. So if you can, reduce your yard size by putting some native plants and things in there, that's a good one. And then composting. Very easy one to do is composting. So that is the different things. Now we're going to kind of pop back through these. And we have these little checklists in the store. You can come in and pick one up. We can help you through it. Or honestly, you can go to that one website and just go through and check what you're doing. So we talked about foods. Your habitat needs 3 of the following types feeders. So do you have at least one bird feeder going? Do you have a squirrel feeder, a butterfly feeder, a hummingbird feeder, some suet? Do you have natural berries out there, nectar? All you need is 3 of those things to qualify in the food section. And I'll bet as most of you are sitting there right now, you're thinking, well, I've got all that already. So then we jump into water. For water, you only need one thing from this category. Do you have a bird bath that you're keeping full of fresh, clean water? You just qualify. Anything, a seasonal pool, a river, a little creek running through, a rain garden. You have a pond in your yard. So all you need is one of those to qualify for the water. For the cover, now that was the one where they're going to take shelter. So the roosting pockets, a brush pile, a little roosting box, some evergreens, just your evergreens that may be out by your front sidewalk. Those are a great shelter for the birds to get in. I'll bet sometimes you walk past there and you just hear little frogs and lizards and birds scurrying all around there. That's a cover that you've offered. So just a wooded area. If you've got a wooded area in your yard, you've got the cover. So you only need 2 things from that category. Then places to raise the young. You need 2 different places. So mature trees can be one of those. A nesting box can be another one. Some type of burrow, cave, brush, log pile. If you've got a meadow in your yard, that qualifies. Just thick shrubs, anywhere that birds would nest. You need 2 of those to qualify.
Barb, what would be an example of a host plant for caterpillars? I'm looking at this, I printed off this list offline, and it says a host plant for caterpillars would count as one of the places.
Milkweed would be a good one. Parsley for your swallowtail. That Audubon list that I mentioned, when you go through that and enter your zip code, you can just tell it you want to know for butterflies or caterpillar. Okay. And it'll tell you some different ones. But, good old milkweed. Milkweed is a great one. For anyone who may not know, milkweed is the only plant that the monarch lays their eggs on. So without milkweed, our monarchs are not going to continue to live. So we definitely, if you've got a spot that you can put some milkweed, is a good one. And there's a lot of different types of milkweed. The common milkweed is what a lot of us are familiar with, but there's other types that have smaller leaves and pretty flowers. And so these native plants aren't necessarily ugly plants. So when you pop on that Audubon list, it's going to show you pictures of the plant and the flower. So you'll be able to really pick out plants that you find attractive. Okay. But yeah, milkweed, I would say, is one of the number one. Joe Pyeweed's another good one. The one we do want you to avoid is the butterfly bush that they all sell for butterflies. And that is an invasive species. So that's one that I know we all think, oh, butterfly bush, we need that one. Yeah, stay away from that one. So that's why I'm really directing you to that Audubon list where you're going to find ones that help with the whole cycle of the butterflies.
I have a butterfly bush that I was very proud of because I had grown it from a little plant and now it's huge.
Right.
And I was proud of that.
I know. Yeah, sadly. So that's, so we've got our cover, the different ones. You're just going to make some little piles of sticks and things. The places to raise the young, those dead trees, dense shrubbery. You know, it doesn't take much to have a bush. Cardinals nest about 3 to 5 feet high, and they just use some kind of shrub to nest in. Brown threshers, I have them nesting in one that it's not an overly thick shrub. So anything like that, I think if you just take a walk around your yard, you're going to find you have that too. And then your sustainable practices, you need 2 from 3 different categories. So probably the majority of us here are using mulch in our yards. That's one of the categories right there. Or a drip or soaker hose for irrigation. If you've got a rain barrel, you can set that rain barrel up to catch the water off of your downspout. That's one from that category. And so there's 3 sections in that sustainable practices. So that was the first section. So if you could choose one of those I mentioned, you're good there. You're only going to need 1 more. Organic, if you can eliminate chemical pesticides and fertilizers or use compost, that's going to give you that second category. If you couldn't find something in either one of those, your next one's going to be reduce your lawn area. Find an area that you can till up and put some native plants in there. And work on removing any non-native plants. And that's going to be that second one. So that is all you have to do. This list looks intimidating, but if you pull it up at that website, that you'll be able to just go through and check. And I think you're going to be surprised to find that you are overachievers and you have probably completed several or are practicing several of those things in those categories. So once you do that, you check it off, you apply, and you get your cool little plaque showing your yard is certified.
Barb, I just saw a question from Abby that said, can you send that link she is talking about? The links are at the very top of this chat. So you'll see the first line is HTTPS. It says www.wbu.com. Certify your yard. That's one of the links. And then the Audubon link is just below that with the HTTPS www.audubon.org. So they're right up there at the top. And Barb, can you tell us with the WBU how Wild Birds Unlimited is helping to sponsor this? I think that's really interesting.
Right. So the National Wildlife Federation's Garden for Life has been out there forever. And we kind of came, you know, how can we work together? Because we're doing the same thing. We're encouraging as Wild Birds Unlimited, save the songbirds, help the songbirds. So we came together as a partner with the Wildlife Federation because we're talking to customers in that firsthand. So it was a perfect partnership that we can help people to get their yards certified. Although most people are probably doing multiple things on these, there's probably some things you're doing that you were like, wow, I never thought about that not being a good thing. Planting a butterfly bush, you know, things like that. We just assume. We go to the garden center and they sell them and they're pretty and, oh, butterflies, I want butterflies. So, you know, together we could partner and we could reach more people, get more yards certified. So that's kind of how we formed this partnership. I think that was in 2019, I believe.
That's great.
So it has really grown. The number of certifications has been great. So, but obviously the win for you is, yes, you're helping the birds, you're helping the wildlife, but you're creating this great little area, refuge in your own backyard for you and your family to enjoy.
Right.
So it really is cool that you're like, you know, I walked out yesterday, and there was just a stack of where Chip had put a bunch of branches and things. And so I walk out and there's a deer standing right there. I'm fairly certain that she has her baby tucked in right around there because she didn't leave the area. She just stood, you know, like 6-8 feet from me, watching me, like, don't come any closer there.
Wow.
And then at the same time, I'm seeing a Carolina wren with her babies who had recently fledged. And it's just a, you know, a large area of just dead branches and things. So, you know, leaving those leaves, it's a good excuse not to rake. Leave the leaves for all the insects and bugs and things under there.
Right.
In the wintertime, the robins are going to dig those and go through there and look for food to eat.
I have another question. Excuse me. I noticed online when you go to apply for the National Wildlife Federation's certification, it looks very easy. You just fill out your address and check off these areas of what you have in the backyard. Do they have to physically come to your house to check your house out?
No, they're totally trusting that you're being honest. And I would tell you, the kind of people that are going to bother going through this and to help wildlife are people that are being very honest. So there isn't a concern that they need to come out and check it. It's, you know, like I said, when you start going through it yourself, I think most of you are going to find out that you've completed way more in each area than you even needed to.
So once you complete it, is there an average amount of time that it takes for them to approve it, or do they send you an email, or how will you be notified?
That I'm not positive on. Like I said, at the time I did mine, it was like you printed it out and you filled it in and you mailed it and wrote a check. And so I'm sure it's a pretty quick turnover now,
Okay.
You know, unlike the 6 or 8 weeks, but that was years ago, probably 2004, I would say, is probably when we did ours.
And then once you're certified, you can buy your little sign to keep in your yard.
Exactly. Yeah. So what we did is just put a little wooden backdrop, and then we have our signs on there. So, and it's right alongside the driveway. So when people come in, it's kind of a conversation starter for those people. So you will be surprised at the people that show interest. I know I certainly was. You know, so it gives you a chance to be an advocate for the wildlife, for the birds.
Barb, I'm going to retype. I'm going to open this up so that if anybody has any questions, they can go ahead and ask you their questions. I had a request to retype these two websites, so I'm going to do that while people ask their questions.
Okay.
It seems like everybody can't see what I wrote at the top, so I'm going to retype those in real quick. So excuse me for just a second.
Okay.
It'll take me a second.
So who listening to that has realized that they probably already have enough that they're doing to get their yard certified?
We're pretty close. So, but I'm glad that we attended because we'll have some things to do this summer. I want a wildlife plaque.
Yes, exactly. Go, girl. You too.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, John.
Sorry. We're outside constantly. So thank you for doing this presentation.
That's awesome. Yes. So we've got the checklist here in the store. If you want to stop in, you can definitely come in and grab those. That way, if the kiddos want to take their list and check it off, you can do that too, and then transfer it all onto the online. But yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting, especially when you see some little bugs or frogs or things in those little cover areas that you've made.
Now, Barb, now that I'm upset about my butterfly bush, am I supposed to dig that out? Is it just is the problem that it multiplies, or why are they so bad?
It does, it just kind of keeps multiplying. If you kind of think of it, if you offer a kid a broccoli or a Snickers bar, which one are they going to go for? So you really want those plants that are going to help in all stages, you know, so from the egg to the caterpillar to the butterfly. So you will see them come after that nectar from the flowers in the butterfly bush, but it's really not doing anything to help them through the rest of their life cycle.
Okay, so they can't lay their caterpillar eggs there.
Right.
Okay, so they can't use it for anything else. Okay,
Yeah.
and same thing with when they say that a honeysuckle bush is invasive. I know we all love the smell of the honeysuckle bushes, and when I heard that you can't buy a honeysuckle bush because they're invasive, I thought, oh, that's terrible because they smell so good when you walk down the street. But I see what you're saying. If they're not giving these insects and animals, birds, whatever, more than one thing, then they're not really that healthy.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think if you go to that Audubon link, you're going to find some like really pretty native species that are going to be helpful, and they take less water and less work to raise and keep them healthy. So it's kind of a win-win for you too. It's less work.
Right, right. Does anybody else have any questions?
I have one more. There's an orange flower that we see on the sides of the roads, like in ditches, and I haven't looked it up, but I will, but it has almost like an orange lily blossom on it that they stand pretty tall.
Trumpet vine.
It's
a trumpet vine.
Yes, yes. Are those good?
I am guessing maybe that's the daylily, and that is native, right? Yeah, I'm asking Chip back here. He's more of the plant guy. I'm the bird person. But yeah, so those are kind of a cool one.
How tall are they?
They're pretty tall. I mean, probably, I don't know, 3 feet. Like, I mean, they're pretty impressive.
Is it a vine? Is it a vine or just a plant?
No, they just stem up. They directly stem up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a daylily you're thinking of.
Okay.
That's good.
I have the daylilies in my yard, and they are wonderful food for the deers. The deer just, if I don't, get out there and I usually put Milorganite down there on them, which has a strong smell, but the deer will eat every flower off overnight.
And that's one more food option. So there you go.
Well, that's true. Well, yeah. Free food. So, well, Barb, this has been great. If anybody else has any questions about the websites, please, you can go to the Wild Birds Unlimited website and ask questions. We have the 2 websites that Barb shared with us today. I'll put those in a follow-up email. And I'll also put the recording of tonight's program on the St. Mary's County Library YouTube page, so you can go back and watch that again for any references that you need. And please reach out to myself or Barb at the store. Everybody in the store is so helpful. You can go in and ask about any type of bird that you want to attract to your yard or types of food. In fact, that brings me to another question that I saw earlier in the chat. Christy said, I have yet to have a tanager. I've got nesting blend now, otherwise no mess blend, as well as the cylinder feeder and suet cake. I lack patience though. So is there any quick fix to attracting a tanager?
Yes. So summer tanagers, they aren't common at feeders, but we are seeing them a lot more. They're not a seed eater, so they're going to go for the suet. However, they're not a clinging bird. So they're not a clinging bird, so they're not going to be able to cling and get to your suet. So if you have your suet where you've got, so if you've got our pole system and you've got one of the branches there that they can sit on the branch and eat from, they will. But I will tell you, their favorite at my house is the bark butter bits. And you want to make sure you're putting that in a tray feeder so that they can perch on the side. They're not going to really, I would be surprised to see them come up to a window feeder. So you would want that tray out on the pole system, you know, out where there's a lot of activity to attract them in, and put it out there. If you've got one of our hummingbird feeders that you're not using right now, this can be a great feeder for your bark butter bits. You can pop that right in there. So off season, this can become a feeder when you're not using it to feed the hummingbirds.
I do have a question. I have a question.
Sure.
When do hummers mate, and do they have multiple broods in the summer?
Yeah, so they are nesting for their first time right now. So the male chooses a territory. He mates with every female in that territory, and then his job is done. So the female is going to go and nest. So you're not going to right now see as many females at your feeders. If they're at your feeders, they're going to be coming and going pretty quickly. Mostly you're going to see them morning and evening, or if it's rainy, you'll see them a little more during the day.
Okay.
Because insects aren't as plentiful when it's raining. So when they're nesting, they're going to raise 2 to 3 young at every nesting, and each female is going to nest twice while they're here.
Twice, okay.
Yeah. So the really
what bird
cool
was that,
thing,
Barb? I didn't hear what bird the question was about.
the hummingbird,
Okay.
which tells us we do need to do another hummingbird talk, right,
Yes.
Joan? We were
Yes.
just talking about that.
Yes.
So yeah, they're going to nest twice. The female's job is to raise those young. So right now at your feeder, anybody you see with red on the neck is going to be the male. Without the red is going to be the female. But once those young start coming, good luck, because they won't have the red yet. You may notice that their tails are a little bit shorter. Their feathers won't be fully grown. But after that first nesting, and those ones are out of the nest on their, and that female's going to nest one more time, raise another 1 to 3, with the most common being 2.
Okay. That's great.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very, very good. Thank you.
Well, Barb, as usual, I've learned a lot of new things tonight. I hope everybody else has learned as much as I have. And Barb and I have been trying to set up these programs each month. We won't be having a program in July, but we will be back in August. We had talked about having a program about where are the birds. It's still hot, but we're not seeing as many birds. But we may switch that out and have a hummingbird program again in August. So look for another program coming up in August, but for right now, we're taking July off, and we'll see everybody in a couple of months.